What's going on there, kings and queens and everybody in between? It's your boy MFC back at you with yet another video, and I'm tired. Every time we get a crazy person with one of these going on some demonic killing spree, whether it's what happened in Buffalo, New York, or what happened in Uvalde, Texas, somehow, some way, we end up in the same political discourse online every single time. We need better gun control. When are we going to get stricter gun laws? Followed by, no one's going to take my guns away. I paid good American money and dinero to get this. And if I want to procure the ammunition and unload on somebody, I very well am gonna. And I feel as though we have got to stop having people intentionally derail that conversation because it is way too easy to get one of these. And I know some of y'all may be commenting, good trigger discipline. You're not on the trigger, and you know that's great and all, but you got to understand it's much easier to find someone who owns a gun than someone who knows what trigger discipline is. And trust me, folks, even if I squeeze the trigger, it's not going to fire. This is a prop gun, and my name's not Alec Baldwin, so you should feel safe for now. However, digging past all of that, I feel as though there's one thing that I think really comes into question here when it comes to gun laws. I don't see why anybody would ever be against that. I feel as though there should be as many layers of security in place to stop the legal purchase of guns. Not saying that it should be impossible to get them, but I feel as though you should be certified and verified and cleared in plethoras of ways before you're allowed to actually be someone who can just get in the, the TSA easy pass of gun purchasing. You know what I mean? Because as it stands right now, there's no reason for in this country for it to be harder for an 18-year-old or younger adolescent to go out into the world, and it's harder for them to procure alcohol, cigarettes, tobacco, and other nicotine products and vape pens than it is for them to get a gun, rifle, firearm, etc. Because at that point, you got to start asking questions like, all right, is it the system? Have we fucked up? The answer is yes, but it's just like, how does this keep happening so consistently where we get these young people or people who are clearly have mental disorders that are well documented, they actually have prescriptions for it, are able to go out and just procure a firearm like on a whim? I'm just not understanding where the breakdown is, because personally, the way I feel about it when it comes to gun control, I know it's really hard to enforce with how many secondhand guns there are, private gun sales, but all those gun shows, they have those private secondhand gun sales. I'll tell you right now, all that needs to be sanctioned. Everybody who comes in there needs to have their paperwork looking crispy. Everybody who is coming in needs to have a background check. You shouldn't just be able to pull up unless you're buying the admission ticket to get in there. Yeah. We're going to need some paperwork. If you're going to be able to buy, you're going to need to be someone who is pre-approved, because right now what we have, that's not going to get it. That's not going to work. And trust me, we have a whole other cavalcade of problems because technology, it moves fast and it's caught up. And we're at a point now where you don't even have to go buy the gun. You can make the gun. You can 3D print guns now. It's crazy. And I mean working, fully functional, can perform up to elite standards guns with a 3D printer. It's crazy how fast technology has moved. But that being said, I really feel as though there's another whole underbelly to this entire narrative, whether it's people looking like me going to Buffalo grocery stores and just trying to enjoy our day of regular commerce in order to provide for our families, and then we're getting gunned down, or whether it's adolescent children who are just trying to learn what numbers are, and yay, we like elementary school. I love you, Miss Fernie, a third grade teacher. And now they got to worry about dodging hot ones because some crazy civilian is in here with vests and a whole bunch of firearms, ammunition, etc., and is gunning us down. There are stories going on where you're telling me that there are children age 8, 12, things of that nature, covering themselves with their classmates' blood to pretend that they're dead so the shooter will leave them alone. You got to understand how fucked up that is. Like, you think you're traumatized by the crazy stuff that your parents might have done for you for discipline. I can only imagine the amount of therapy sessions that you're going to have to even begin to unpack that, much less get over it. However, all that aside, talking about the tragedies at hand, if we're talking about Uvalde, every single officer that was deployed that has anything to do with this, you got to go back to the academy. You got to go back to training. And if you don't want to, don't cut the check. Cut them from the roster. Get rid of them. Because I am tired of every new detail coming out showing us that y'all have bended every truth and told every lie conceivable to make it seem like y'all did everything possible to save those kids. Because when I read the fact that the door wasn't even barricaded, y'all just said it was barricaded because for some reason y'all assumed a closed door is an unbreachable door, is the most nonsensical thing to me. Much less the fact that you claim that you breached the door. The word and terminology used was you breached the door. So I'm thinking, oh, well, they used the battering ram. They used some level of real force in order to force their way in through the perimeter in order to get the son of a bitch. But no, you had to find a janitor and procure a key. Folks, if opening a door with a key and then opening that door with aforementioned key is breaching something, then every single time one of us opens or closes a store or enters our house, the perimeter's been breached. That's not a breach. That's just a key performing a function. You guys know what you're doing with that loaded language. Stop it. You're not covering your own ass on this one. Especially when we find out that the commander and the commanding officer never was even told that there were people inside making 911 calls, giving them viable and valuable information on what's happening. And that information never made it up the chain of command to people who were on site. That is a level of incompetence I have not seen since I looked at the White House in the past 24 hours. That, like, there's no way. There's no conceivable way that that is what y'all call America's finest. The thin line, all that the thin blue line, all that stuff. No, that's garbage. Especially when you find out the egregious amount of that small city's taxes and how much of their public spending goes towards the police force. And that's the best effort you got? Nah, I understand small town, you don't always get the best, but y'all got to do something better than that because there's no way. There is no way that that level of incompetence should be allowed to rock. Because let's face it, folks, if that's what's going on, I'm feeling like I'm in danger, much less allowing my kids to go out there. And I understand there's a couple of counties and cities and states that are trying to, sign things into law that allows every teacher on staff to come in packing heat. But let's face it, is that what you really want? Because last I checked, when I'm looking through the news, y'all don't trust the teachers to actually teach your kids. You don't trust the teachers to keep your kids safe, as it were, anyway. Depending on some states, like Florida, you don't actually think that the teachers are capable of, what is it? What did I like to say? Indoctrinating your kids into the LGBTQIA plus militia, whatever that means. And you mean to tell me you want them all walking around with the potential decision on their hands to be able to take a life? And I get it. You would much rather be in a situation where you have a gun and don't need one, but when you do need it, you have the gun, as opposed to not having a gun when you don't need one and wishing you had a gun when you needed one. And I get that, but you guys got to understand, in a situation where you got a young kid coming in here, because 18-year-old is a kid, and I don't care what it says, and they're coming through and they look like they mean business. You want third grade teacher Miss Fernia packing heat? You want 8th grade Mr. Chadwick making decisions on life or death here? You sure that these people are even trained to hold firearms? Like, there's a whole myriad of questions that you have to unpack when you introduce that in there. Now, if you want to get officers who are certified, competent, qualified to do this job, and you want 3 or 4 of them in every school, all right, now you're talking. You're saying words that I can understand. But if you want somebody who's a hobbyist who, let's face it, may not even know what trigger discipline is, to be protecting my kid and just be, I hit Timmy. No, Timmy, no. That's the last thing that we need, especially putting extra decisions on already stressed out, underpaid teachers. That's just not going to get it, especially in the public school system. Private school system, y'all got money to throw around and do what y'all want to do with y'all's leisure. So I can't really speak to y'all and what private problems y'all might be having. But like, this is an issue that it sticks in my craw, makes my ass cheeks kind of chapped, because this just ain't it. I think guns should be very, very, very hard to gain access to. I understand you may be saying, but people can 3D print guns. At the very least, having drum rounds, extended magazines, things that would allow you to shoot like 30 plus rounds in quick succession, all that, cancel it. it should be illegal for a regular civilian like you and me to get anywhere near that type of merchandise, anywhere near that type of hardware. It should. And the punishments for being caught with them or displaying that you have access to them when you're not qualified to have it should be extreme. Should be to the nth degree. And I mean that. Like, I'm talking like, nah, you have that stuff, you need to be going away and paying huge fines. And it needs to be confiscated. And personally, I don't think it should be confiscated and just held somewhere. I think it should be destroyed. Put that shit in a landfill, because you ain't gonna be using it. And personally, don't think any regular civilian should be using it either. Now, how do you handle the parts that are actually already out there? Well, let's do one step at a time. We'll work on that at some point. But if they're out there, then they're just kind of out there. I don't know how you're going to be able to stop the 3D printing part, though. That part's always going to be rough, especially since there's even competitions for ghost guns and 3D printed guns and home assembly guns. And that's wild to think about in and of itself. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys think gun control needs reform? Do you think that it needs to be taken to the next level? If you're someone who thinks that the guns need to be taken away from every American, I'm going to take off my hat, wipe off my sweat. I'm sorry, I'm a hot-blooded person. When I get passionate about things, I start to sweat, but I'm going to slap you. That's because now you're just saying things to say things. If you're someone who thinks that gun control does need to happen and everyone should have a gun, I should probably also backhand you, because you clearly tell giving everybody a gun it's not the solution, especially since there's going to be plenty of people out there who still will make the choice to not have a gun because they don't want to be put into the aforementioned position of having to determine of whether somebody lives or dies, because they don't have the courage to be able to put the hot ones into their chest, even if they are up to no good. So once again, I just want to know what you guys think. Comment below. I will see you guys next time, and I really hope I don't have to make another video about any of the topics that we talked about here. Y'all stay safe, and yeah, let's make this country better. Yeah.